is inertia, the non-wanting to move of your mind, the heaviness of your mind. Put it in motion. And the more you use it, the easier it is to use, of course. That's true. But if you're not using it, if you're lethargic, you're not used to using this stuff, it can be difficult to set it in motion. It's like a huge 18-wheeler truck. The engine's shut off, it's in neutral, and you have to move it down the road. And it's nothing resisting it but a bit of friction. That's how your mind is. You've got inertia in your mind stopping you from wanting all the time to do things. And that is the only thing that opposes your rational principle, is the difficulty of operating your rational faculty. Inertia, the desire to not change the amount of movement that it has, including if it's sitting still, to not change that fact. Okay, now he's got an unnecessary dichotomy we're going to look at here. Virtue also is distinguished into kinds in accordance with this difference, for we say that some of the virtues are intellectual and others are moral. Philosophic wisdom and understanding, and practical wisdom being intellectual, and liberality and temperance being moral. Now, understanding things and practical wisdom, being able to go about your daily life, how could we say it has nothing to do with morality? Unless, I mean, it's just a dichotomy he can't uphold. Some of the virtues are intellectual and others are moral. Now, a virtue means something that's good for you, and some of them are to do with your mind, and some of them are to do with your morals. Do you see? I don't think he's going to be able to make any clean cleaves here. You can't separate these things out. And we're going to skip the rest of what he says about it. Just an unnecessary dichotomy there. Now we're in Book 2 of the Ethics. Congratulations, you've made it this far into the Nicomachean Ethics, ladies and gentlemen. Virtue, then, being of two kinds, intellectual and moral. Intellectual virtue, in the main, owes both its birth and its growth to teaching, for which reason it requires experience and time. So intellectual virtue requires experience and time. You actually have to have concrete daily experiences in reality to learn that type. However, moral virtue comes about as a result of habit, whence its name ethica is one that is formed by a slight variation from the word ethos, or habit. So that's where ethics comes from. Your ethica. What are your habits? What are your ethics? What do you do? From this, it is also plain that none of the moral virtues arises in us by nature, for nothing that exists by nature can form a habit contrary to its nature. Interesting sentence there. Is just, it seems pretty plain to me. Nothing that exists by nature can form a habit contrary to its nature. But therefore he says, it is plain that none of the moral virtues arises in us by nature, because they're difficult, because there's that inertia against them. There's that inertia keeping you from practicing them. So he says they are in a certain way unnatural. They do not arise in us by nature, because you couldn't have something arise by nature that's against its nature. For instance, the stone which by nature moves downward cannot be habituated to move upward, not even if one tries to train it by throwing it up 10,000 times. Nor can fire be habituated to move downward, nor can anything else. By the way, fire moves up because of gravity pulling heavier things down, and heated air is lighter and expansive, and so it moves up. So what you have a different thing in space. They burn candles and stuff in the space shuttle, and the flame acts completely different. Absolutely bizarre. It looks like a weird electrical field, a burning candle flame on the space shuttle. Okay, nor can anything else that by nature behaves in one way be trained to behave in another. Neither by nature, then, nor contrary to nature do the virtues arise in us. Rather, we are adapted by nature to receive them and are made perfect by habit. That is a little too much. I don't know about that. That sounds fine. Neither by nature nor contrary to nature do the virtues arise in us. Rather, we are adapted by nature to receive them. Now, if you knew about evolution, I would think that what he's saying there is that nature predisposes us to be nice to each other and to cooperate and nature predisposes us to dislike the guy in the next valley and his tribe and stuff. Nature presupposes these things into us, and we can perfect them by habit, ethika, ethos. But when he says, neither by nature nor contrary to nature do they arise in us, but we are adapted by nature to receive them. And I just think that that's a little unclear, a little murky. Who knows if it's maybe not been translated correctly? Who knows? We skip just a bit. Men become builders by building, and lyre players by playing the lyre. So too we become just by doing just acts, temperate by doing temperate acts, and brave by doing brave acts. This is confirmed by what happens in states. For legislatures, yikes, legislatures make the citizens good by forming habits in them. You thought that Plato was the statist, you know? Aristotle's quite a statist. He says the people of a state are made good by the legislators forming good habits in the people. And this is the wish of every legislator, to do this, to be part of forming good habits in people. We skip a bit. By doing the acts that we do in our transactions with other men, we become just or unjust. And by doing the acts that we do in the presence of danger, and being habituated to feel fear or confidence, we become brave or cowardly. The same is true of appetites and feelings of anger. Some men become temperate and good tempers, others self-indulgent and irascible, by behaving in one way or the other in the appropriate circumstances. Thus, in one word, states of character arise out of like activities. It makes no small difference, then, whether we form habits of one kind or another from our very youth. It'd make a very great difference, or rather, all the difference. It's very important what we do from youth onwards, because what we do indicates who we are. And that's something that I think is not appreciated today, that what you do indicates who you are. Everyone thinks that you can, well, I mean, there's that crazy bastard named Jesus, who really was a bastard, they don't know who his father was, who ran around saying, "Judge not, lest ye be judged," and stuff. And that gives people the idea that other people can just be themselves, and you don't have to judge them, and you don't have to worry about who you are. But actually, I think we should take Aristotle's advice. The things you do and the words you say have consequences you must pay. It is important what you do. It does indicate who you are. And the nature of virtue is making good actions a habit. Do them all the time, good actions, and you will be virtuous. And, as the ethics is, going back a few videos now in time, back to the earlier part of Book 1, if you do that, you'll obtain happiness, according to Aristotle. Since then, the present inquiry does not aim at theoretical knowledge like the others, for we are inquiring not in order to know what virtue is, but in order to become good, right? Since otherwise our inquiry would have been of no use. Why do we want to have knowledge of it if it isn't going to do us any good in reality? So he's always stressing that your mind has to be connected to reality and reality to your mind. We must examine the nature of actions. Okay, so let's do it without that parenthesis thing stuck in there. Since then the present inquiry does not aim at theoretical knowledge like the other inquiries, we must examine the nature of actions, namely how we ought to do them. For these determine also the nature of the states of character that are produced. Go ahead, put that in your pocket and save it for later. Now, that we must act according to the right rule is a common principle and must be assumed. It will be discussed later. We skip down a bit. The whole account, the entire account of matters of conduct must be given in outline and not precisely. So we want to draw it in principles, not give various little teeny details. Matters, we skip a little, matters concerned with conduct and questions of what is good for us have no fixity any more than matters of health. Now, we may or may not agree with him exactly there, but you see what he's saying. You can't say that you need a tooth pulled every day. That's not the road to health, even though sometimes you do need a tooth pulled. So he's saying that you can't give across the board complete principles for this stuff. You just have to sort of play it by ear, as it were, look at reality in each situation. He's being pragmatic about it.